Welcome to Email After Hours by Senderscore, powered by Validity.
We're your hosts. My name is Guy Hansen.
And I'm Danielle Gallant, and this is Email After Hours.
As 2025 draws to a close, we're taking a moment to reflect on an incredible year of conversations, insights, and inspiration with some of the sharpest minds in the world of email marketing. We've covered just about everything this year, from deliverability to creating content that converts, and pretty much everything in between too. We've laughed, we've learned, and we've uncovered some serious gold along the way. Nothing was off limits, and that's exactly how we like it. So, for this very special Best of 2025 episode, we've pulled together some of our favorite moments, the insights, the laughs, the aha moments, and whether you've been with us right throughout the year or you're just tuning in for the first time, sit back, relax, and join us as we revisit some of the stories that made this year unforgettable. First up, we revisited one of our most talked about topics this year: cookies, consent, and the clever ways marketers can keep building trust without relying on third-party data. Here's Beata Linz. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Now, bringing this a little closer to home, I think it's fair to say, all three of us have a sort of lifelong love affair with email. And at the end of the day, cookies still play a pivotal role in the success of email marketing. Think of cart abandonment or browser abandonment programs, for example. So how can marketers, run those email programs successfully without cookies? Are there strategies they can implement now that would be beneficial regardless of how the cookie landscape evolves?
Yes, exactly. And I love that you bring this up because we, and personally myself, advocates the email marketing industry because it bridges this issue. It bridges the issue of cookie collection, third-party cookie collection, because with emails you can collect zero and first-party data so much easier. So let me explain a little bit what is the difference here. So
Thank you.
so zero-party data is something that is being captured because a user deliberately provides that. So somebody fills in like an email sign-up form with their email address. Then you have first-party data, which is kind of indirect, but it's still from the interaction from that email. So it's a lot more, or the website that they are on. So it's a lot more easier to get. But third-party data is really about someone going to a website, accepting the cookies for third parties for marketing, and be able to be followed across various websites and then see personalized ads from that website where you accepted that cookie. So with email, you have the option, you capture the email address, you capture that consent with that email address that this person can be contacted, is what is going to change completely your marketing strategy, because you will be able to, own that contact and not necessarily have to pay a lot of money to Google or to, if we talk about also social media, like for example, Meta and others, to be able to do retargeting and to be able to do remarketing strategies for that contact. You will own that contact and be able to communicate to them because they asked for it, they signed up.
I love it.
The next thing that we really wanted to talk about it's data replacements, right? So what do we use instead of cookies or as a supplement for cookies? And you've already done a great job of explaining the difference between first and third party data. And honestly, I feel like a lot of my clients are at the point where when I start speaking to them about, let's revamp your preference center for zero party data, everybody goes, okay, we're back here. She's back on the lecture about first party or zero party data. But I think the question is, how should marketers be collecting first party data or zero party data in a way that both maintains trust and actually provides value and isn't just asking for the sake of asking?
There are several ways to do this. I think the very important part is whenever you capture that email address and whenever you capture any zero-party data, It's that value exchange. What are you going to give in return to your users, to your opt-ins, that they are going to get from you? So may it be certain incentives for just opting in. That could be, I don't know, I'm making this up, a 10 euro off on your first order. That could be a hook. Then it's going to be, as a marketer, your job to keep growing the zero and first party data within your database with other value exchange, with other important, benefits that you can provide to your subscriber across the entire journey of your subscriber. You can have quizzes and different kinds of games and different kinds of programs where you actually provide a benefit to the user, or at least a fun time for the user, or maybe even learn something about themselves for the user in return for getting that email sign up. For example, ASICS does this quiz of what kind of runner are you? And then they capture the data of, if you are a pronator or if you run short distances or long distances, but also at the same time capturing the data and also capturing that interest that you are a pronator. So most probably you will need shoes that are for a pronator is extremely valuable, not just for the user, because at the end of the quiz, they will be like, okay, so I am this kind of runner. By the way, these are the shoes that I need. By the way, this is how I need to run. So it has a lot of opportunities for service. So they can tell me, how to not injure myself during my run. But also at the same time, then the brand can decide how are they going to use this data with the right follow-ups and communications in the future. So gamification and experiences, and then in the end, progressive profiling. I love that word, which is asking across the entire journey of that subscriber of what else can you tell me? You didn't give me your birthday yet? Don't worry, because I will ask you again because you will get something in return.
It reminds me of, well, I mean, I've done those quizzes, right? Like I've done them, even if it's on a website or whether it's through email. But it also reminds me of, just when you talk about the value exchange, it reminds me of loyalty programs. And Guy and I have been talking for a long time about how it just seems like the structure of a loyalty program kind of needs to be integrated into the email program as a whole, regardless of whether that subscriber has actually opted into something or not for that value exchange. So I wonder, how do you see zero or first party data playing a role in kind of aligning customer experiences across those various touch points like email, social media, website interactions?
This is the shift that is really crucial within 2025, that companies who haven't looked into this yet are already investing or looking into investing into restructuring their data platforms, and how that data is going to then power, the entire ecosystem. So for example, CDPs, customer data platforms, are expanding very heavily, which connect all the dots between the website, within email, within app and mobile, and all performance marketing paid media channels. And then customer data platform CDPs allow the data to flow easily, and also help with this real-time communication. But that's on the foundation level. And this is a really crucial part of understanding data and how the connections between the different data flows that are coming in and the CDPs are actually getting all that information, getting all that data, and centralizing all of that, and then pushing it out to the different channels. Extremely valuable, and more companies are doing that.
Next, we turned up the heat on a subject that can generate some frosty opinions: cold email. Sara Kappler joined us to talk about when it works, when it doesn't, and how to do it the right way.
I think so. The biggest one I see that I'd love to dig in with you is this kind of lead gen, these cold lists and having to have multiple, domains or sometimes specialized tools to warm up, warm up the domain and then not send too many. And then hopefully you'll get the lead over and then you email them from your regular domain, right? It's like the infrastructure, I think, needs to be a little bit bigger. I don't see our B2C clients buying lists or relying on that type of, scraped data at all, right? And so it's just, I think that's a special can of email that's really specific to the B2B.
Talk about it. We need to talk about cold emailing. So actually I was telling Guy I use Reddit. It'll be like my morning scroll or whatever. I'll be going through Reddit. And there is an entire subreddit that is dedicated to the topic of cold email.
It's a dark place.
I was gonna say it's both amusing and baffling. And most marketing consultants or email consultants, I think their knee-jerk reaction to cold email is don't do it, right? Don't do it. But there is a place and, to your point, a necessity for it in B2B marketing. Like, it's often harder to grow a B2B program subscriber base just inherently. So how should B2B senders do cold email in a way that's as closely aligned with best practices as possible?
Yeah, I mean, we have clients come to us all the time. Hey, we've got this list. Can you email them? And like you said, the knee jerk reaction is, oh no, like now what? Are we going to ruin everything we worked for? Ruin our deliverability? Are we going to be those people? And I'll just make a caveat here. I'm sure you're in the same boat, but as a business owner, I mean, the amount of spam, cold outreach I receive on a daily basis, like it's out of hand, right? It's like, 6 to 10 emails every single day of that cold outreach. And so as a recipient of that, I'm like, I do not want to be spamming the world more, right? Like I don't want to be adding to it. So this is what I tell clients. I tell them, first of all, let's think through what is it that you're promoting? Does it make sense for a cold outreach? And I think when you get the offer and the message right, and you have a list and they're qualified and you get the message right, it can absolutely have its place. But if you're just coming with a list and you got no plan, forget about it. So let's come up with a plan to tackle this. And two, I always tell them we need to do a test, right? Let's take a very small sample. Let's run the test. Let's see what happens, and then make the decision. And 9 times out of 10, that test is not it's not giving the results they were hoping it's going to give. And I explained to them, like, here's the risk, here's the trade-off of running this, versus not running it. And most of the time they abandon the idea.
I'm so glad to hear that.
And we try to talk them out of it. But, we've had cases where it's successful, and, some businesses really only need a few clients a year to really make it worthwhile. And so when it depends on the business model and the offer and like, the whole thing, and where the email list came from. And of course, if it's been checked and if the emails are valid, like that's really important with a cold list. And we always do that, no matter what, because I'm not tanking their whole program. It's a special situation. I wish there were, there's really like two branches of people who do email, right? And we tend to be in the I don't like cold email, and then other people are, we only do cold email. Look at our stats, and I think there's kind of two schools within the email world, and they're just polar opposites.
And I think in reality, there's probably some middle ground, which is, you potentially can do it, but if you're going to do it well, understand how those addresses are being sourced and how frequently they're being flipped.
And make sure your message is like interesting enough for these people. Don't waste their time.
Can I add one extra thing in there, which is, now that you all know I'm a subreddit, cold email subreddit addict, don't use the same template that everybody else is using. Like, just try not to, guys. It's like one of those things that's immediately going to get your message sent to spam because it is just a red flag.
You're etching ahead in the email geekery states. Most of us are familiar with like cold pizza for breakfast, but cold email.
Start my day off with a cold shower.
Then we took a look at 2025's biggest conversation, AI, but through a slightly different lens. Karen Talavera shared some brilliant examples of how automation and ethics meet inside the inbox. I feel like they also lead us to the next big question because you touched on data, and I think as we understand, a lot of that data, customers' data is personal data, first party, zero party, and perhaps there's an ethical consideration here too, because I think in most instances, those customers will be asked to provide consent to process their personal data. But do we think that we're getting to a point where they need to be asked for specific consent for their data to be processed by AI?
If we're talking about consumers who are receiving email, I think they know a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes. I'm sure they don't know what they don't know. And that's a long winded way of saying there's a lot of complexity to the world of email marketing that the average consumer, the recipient who gets a message in their inbox, doesn't understand, goes into putting that campaign out the door. I think they're aware, though, that their data, if they provided it to a brand that they're buying from and transacting with, that they know it's going to be used. There's already been disclosures. Now, if it's going to be shared with third parties, if it's going to be anonymized, there needs to be consent. And there often usually is. But, is there going to be a difference between that data being used specifically by an AI tool and legacy tools? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that changes the game as much as the fact that, we might be able to get even more signals in the future and more data that we haven't had before. Maybe that's the question.
Of course, it wasn't all serious business this year. On April Fool's Day, Danielle and I explored the lighter side of email marketing and a few campaigns that genuinely made us laugh out loud.
How about you, Guy? Any favorite April Fool's campaigns that you've seen?
You know what? I mean, there's been some crackers over the years. I mean, we've seen McDonald's doing glow-in-the-dark burgers. Tinder, believe it or not, has a great sense of humor. A while back, they did a promotion on April Fool's Day saying that they were going to introduce functionality to stamp out height phishing.
Finally, it's you talking about the dating sites.
And they also ran an ad looking for a VP of ghosting. And another personal favorite, Duolingo, they promoted toilet rolls that you could learn your language from, and you'd have sort of the text in both versions on each sheet, including really useful phrases like my dog does not wear pants. So there's a few, but I think two standouts. I think the big one last year was Dunkin' Donuts. And they ran this great promotion. Subject line was Dunkin' debuts new name effective April 1st, and went on to inform its customers that it's time for some spring cleaning. They're not joking around, out with the old, in with the new. And they were really proud to notice that from here on, they were going to be known as Just Donuts. And they were themed offers and customized merchandise that you could, purchase. And it was, hugely successful. Literally millions of people taken in by that one. And another personal favorite, cereal maker Magic Spoon. And they announced that the pudding bowl haircut was coming back into fashion, and that they had branded cereal bowls with the ideal size for the perfect trim. I mean, that was another great one.
Oh man, I feel so bad for parents and kids that fell over that. What about today? Have you seen any today, Guy?
Oh, I have seen one absolute zinger, and I'm gonna have to give you a little bit of context because to help our North America listeners especially understand how good this was. But it came from Cotton Traders, and for context, they're a British clothing company. They specialize in leisure wear, and hopefully they'll forgive me for saying they're pretty middle of the road. Their marketing doesn't usually do anything, to scare the horses. And the actress who is part of this campaign, Miranda Hart, she's a bit like another Bridget Jones. She really can't resist inappropriate jokes, and she has similar appalling luck with their relationships. And relevant to today's story, that's at least partly due to her very unfortunate choices when it comes to underwear.
Oh, okie
So the email that dropped into my inbox this morning from Cotton Traders, subject line, Big Knicker News. Miranda Hart's new designs have landed. Now, this is like, pretty out of context for Cotton Traders, so it immediately grabbed my attention. And I opened it up, and it went on to explain that award-winning comedian turned lingerie model Miranda Hart has announced her first ever brand collaboration with the launch of her very own Big Knicker range. And yes, it's as easy as it sounds. And then there's this brilliant, sort of button, CTA, shop Miranda's pants. And then you click through, and there's like different options. You can get one with Miranda's face on them, and others with sort of slogans like Happy Farty Pants and I Love Snacks. And even a video where she sort of explains the origin story, the inspiration behind these pads. Then finally, a CTA, and you click on it, and it goes April Fools. But even there, they sort of carry on with it, and there's a competition that you can enter to actually win some of these Miranda pants. So brilliantly executed, and a sort of huge call out to Cotton Traders. That's definitely my winner of the day today.
I recognize her. I was looking her up on my phone while you were telling the story because I needed a visual. She's like a comedian.
That's right. And did you ever know Morph, the little sort of plasticine claymation character?
No, I don't think so.
Her dad was Tony Hart, and he was like this. It was almost like Great British Bake Off for art, and that was his signature.
Oh my gosh, they're so good. I mean, obviously, there you go, everybody. There is a place for laughs and days like April Fools in email marketing. It goes without, there's no question anymore. And an Oracle study found that like a whopping 91% of consumers want brands to be funny, and 72% of consumers would rather buy from a funny brand than a competitor. But 95% of business leaders fear using humor in customer interactions. And I kind of get it, but that's such a discrepancy. Like, what do you make of that, Guy? And if you were pitching an April Fool's or humorous campaign to a company, how would you sell it?
The way I think about it is actually, believe it or not, there's a bit of science involved here. I think laughter, you used the word a moment ago. Laughter is associated with humanity and community. I think there's good reasons for that. If you can create a connection with your customers through humor, it's a great way to get your emails noticed. That's why the Cotton Traders email stood out so obviously to me today. And, that's a fantastic way to drive real engagement. Humor makes your emails feel like a friendly gesture rather than a hard sell, more like a conversation. And, it has some positive spin-offs. It makes brands more approachable and memorable and relatable. And all of these factors, help you stand out from your competitors. And I think, especially during, really high volume periods like Black Friday, a touch of humor can provide just a refreshing break, from that relentless tsunami of sales messages, with playful subject lines. You can grab attention. And as I say, it helps to humanize your brand. But of course, and this is probably why brands are a little bit nervous about using humor, like most things in the world of email, there's a time and a place. And finally, we wrapped up with some timeless advice from Philip Storey around building your very own email dream team. Hard-earned, real-life lessons about effective leadership, when to pivot, and, occasionally, how to let go. Because I think as any business grows and develops, there's probably, that odd time where you get to a real pivot point moment, a critical juncture where the decision you're going to take shapes where the business goes over the next few years. And I think when we were prepping for today, you talked about getting to the point where you knew that you needed to make that shift from player to coach. And were you intentional about how you made that switch? And, was it difficult for you to let go of the day-to-day stuff?
Yeah, I've got extremely high standards, and so letting go felt scary. I had to build a set of tools to be able to let go of working directly with all of our clients. I still do work directly on a lot of accounts, and I'm always spending a lot of time in calls with clients because I just love it. I like to get involved, but I also know that there's a fine line between stepping on people's toes and supporting people in the team here, right? And actually, I think clients actually really want to talk to the team anyway, more than they want to see me kind of lurking around. So, but I think for me, it was really making sure that I knew that there were going to be some kind of core values around how I would recruit and what the kind of stakes in the ground were for what it would be to be somebody that works in the agency. I knew that I needed people that would be better than me. And I kind of had this analogy of like building a dream team. I was working with a coach at the time, and we were actually playing with our kind of copywriting at the time, like the kind of the brand tone of voice. And we kept saying that we like to try and build dream teams, email dream teams around ambitious brands. And that became kind of the theme for how I recruited everybody into each position. And I kind of did think about it like a football team, like a soccer team, like building your dream team. Who's going to be your best goalkeeper? Who's going to be your best email designer? Who's going to be the absolute best developer, deliverability specialist, account managers, consultants, all the different positions that that you've got to look for. And I set about finding the best player for every single position, and that's still, you get it right most of the time.
Has your team ever been faced with like an email oops, as we all have? And how did you set it right?
Do you mean have they ever made a mistake and then we've had to kind of correct?
Well, I want to say this in the notes, in the notes for this episode, there's in brackets, Danielle has some good examples of an email oops. And I'm spoiled for choice about like, whoops, this thing wasn't sent to the right group of people, or oops, this was unintentionally offensive, or oops, we sent you 4 of the same exact email in the same day. The classics.
We've done all of those, by the way. I think at some point as an agency, we have definitely done to tick those 3 boxes for sure. The segmentation one is the most common one, like sending to the wrong segment. And I feel so bad for like campaign managers when they're like, oh God, I've got to tell Philip that I've made this mistake and I've got to tell the client. But the good thing is I think that I've done this too, right? We've all done it. In my first job, I sent a blank email to the whole database, and I had this really interesting Irish director that I reported to. And one day, it was near Christmas, and he did not look particularly in the greatest shape. I think he'd been at a party the night before, and I had to go to his desk and tell him that I'd done this, and I knew that I had to tell him what I was going to do about it too. And I think that's just it. Like, what are you going to do about it is what clients want to know. And I think if you're a marketer, that's what your boss is going to want to know, like if you've made that kind of mistake.
So that's a wrap on our best of 2025. Thanks to all our amazing guests for sharing their stories, and to you, our listeners, for tuning in all year long. If you've enjoyed these conversations, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming in 2026. And don't forget to visit senderscore.org for more resources to help you become a stronger email sender. And lastly, Danielle and I love our Email After Hours guests, and we're always looking out for new ones to feature on future episodes too. If you'd like to send in your email marketing hot takes or questions, you can email us at emailafterhours@validity.com or head to the link in the show notes to send us an audio message. Hope you've enjoyed listening, and we'll see you again next time. Bye for now. Be sure to tune in next time and hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And don't forget to visit senderscore.com for loads more great resources to help you become a stronger sender.
To all you sleepless senders out there, thank you for joining us after hours, and see you next time.